This is going to be my review of the Gemini GVX-SUB15P. Now I have it set up next to two Mackie Thumps and my Gemini CDMP 6000 on top. Alright, first I want to talk about why a subwoofer is important, or multiple subwoofers are important to your sound system. In fact, you might be looking at this system right here, at both Mackie Thumps, and think, wow, those both have 15-inch subwoofers. Why do you need a 15-inch subwoofer dedicated to just the low ends? Isn't that enough with just the two loudspeakers? Quite frankly, no. Those loudspeakers, although they can produce some nice bass, they can't drive as much power as a dedicated subwoofer can. Pretty much no loudspeakers can. So that's why a separate subwoofer system is very important to your sound system. One great feature about the GVX subwoofers that I'll talk about later is that they can do what's called a high-pass output, which means that all of the bass is being handled by the subwoofer, and then the signal that's being given off to the loudspeakers is just the mids and the highs. And that will allow your loudspeakers to actually get louder on the mids and highs without having to work as hard. A lot of benefits to having just all of the bass being handled by the subwoofers. Then you might ask, well, why is bass so important if you keep talking about bass? Bass is extremely important to your sound system. If you want something that people remember, what they can actually feel, bass is what you need. Don't be fooled by thinking you can have these two loudspeakers and that it'll be as an experience. Well, it still sounds good, but it's not going to be as good as if you had some dedicated subwoofers to go along with it. Another thing people forget is that they think that these subwoofers are made just for being loud. It's not quite the case. Any music at any volume will sound much better with dedicated subwoofers. Rock and roll, classical, even spoken word really does. If it sounds just clear, better, have more full sound with bass, it's very important. Now that being said, Gemini in particular is not known as an industry leader by any means in terms of their products. In fact, I would consider this on the low end of the professional subwoofers out there for mobile DJs. Then you might ask, why would anybody want this quote-unquote low-end subwoofer? And that simply comes down to cost. Economically, it is a very cheap option for a subwoofer to your system. The other professional subwoofers will range from $600, $800, $1,000, $1,500. It gets very expensive to add a sub to your system, so a lot of DJs, they can't afford that, so they're just simply going to have to go for something cheaper. And I believe that this series actually is a very nice choice. I'm sure there are more robust, louder, better sounding, stronger, longer lasting subwoofers out there. However, all those will be much more expensive. If you just simply can't afford those, you're going to have to go for something cheaper. Gemini GVX series seems like a pretty good option. Finally, what would you use this subwoofer for? I would say most likely you would use them either as a mobile DJ or possibly your home entertainment system would be fine. When I'm not using them for mobile DJing, I like to have this actually as my home sound system, and I use it very frequently, and it sounds great. Okay, now I'm going to take away the other speakers and such and give you a close-up and talk more about the features and build of this subwoofer. Okay, first I'll just give you a basic overview of the subwoofer. As you can see, this is the 15-inch version. There also is a 12-inch and an 18-inch version. I thought this was a good middle ground for portability and also power, so that's why I went with this one. And I think this is also the most popular, I believe. You got a 15-inch sub, and you got two ports on the bottom. I guess it's actually one port, but there's just a spacer, as you can see. It's a wooden construction. Strong wooden construction. I can stand on this no problem. You can see there's a 35mm pole mount for mounting your loudspeakers maybe on top of this using a pole. Flat sides with recessed in handles, which is a nice feature. You can put stuff right up against it and it will lay flush, and then also carrying is very handy with those handles. Coming around to the back. I'll go more in depth in this later. See the large heatsink. There's the power input and the on-off switch. then your inputs and other things there. Other side is very similar to the other side. And the sub is actually, or the speaker is protected by a metal grate. The grate itself is actually a little bit flexible, as you can see. I guess it's not really a problem. I would prefer if it was completely solid and didn't have any flex to it, but so far no problems. I could see this being dented easily. But again, that shouldn't really affect the performance, just more of an aesthetic thing. The paint is a very nice textured black, weatherproof, kind of high quality paint. I think they did a very nice job with that. It's not completely impervious to scratches or anything, but I believe it does protect the wood pretty well. Alright, jumping to the back of the subwoofer, we've got some knobs, and on the inputs, on the volume there's kind of a tactile click into each of the different notches, which is a nice feature. It feels like a very high quality knob. It just feels great. This one doesn't have any, this is the frequency knob, and I'll get to that later what that does. But it doesn't have any clicks, but it also feels very high quality and sturdy. Don't have any worries about that breaking. Here's the phase switch again. Very simple. Feels high quality enough. All right, moving down to the inputs and outputs. Right here on the far left is your inputs that actually accepts either 1/4 inch or XLR. 1/4 inch, I don't actually use 1/4 inch, but here's the jack to my headphones, but just for an example, it's the same kind of input. So you can see the 1/4 inch works or XLR works. And when you have the XLR plugged in, they're actually locked in with this switch here, and you have to depress that in order to take it out. Very nice. And then one of my favorite features about the subwoofer is the output options. You've got the through output, which will give all the signal that was put into the input. All of that signal will go through the output, through your XLR only. Or what you can do is the what's called the high pass output, and that will only output the frequencies that are above what you want right here. So if you only want the sub to do low as 35 hertz, it'll only put out 35 hertz frequencies. Or you can turn it up, and then it'll up to 200 hertz, and then it'll do a much higher range frequencies, and then whatever above that will be sent to the high pass output, and those will go through your loudspeakers. I prefer to be set somewhere in the middle or so. The thing is, if you have too little of frequency, it doesn't really add much, and your high or your loudspeakers are doing a lot of bass work as well. But if you have it too high, then this sub is working a little bit too hard, and it just doesn't sound as good either. So I find the happy medium to be right in the middle. Alright, then moving down past the heatsink, you've got the on-off switch. Again, high quality switch, very tactile, no problems there. And then there's your basic power input, very standardized. You can use any standard power cable, and it's very simple. Alright, on the top is the pole mount that I mentioned before. That's about, I guess, about 4 inches deep or so, and you can fit your aluminum poles in there relatively snugly. There is still some wiggle room, but should not be a problem. Alright, turning to the bottom of the subwoofer, not much there, just 4 rubberized legs. Not much to say about that, but it's nice to have those instead of just a flat bottom. Okay, so I've had the subwoofer now for about 4 months, and it's been working pretty well for me. I have to say I haven't really had too many problems with it. Gemini claims this is a 400 watt RMS or continuous output of 400 watts subwoofer, or a peak of 1600 watts, which I have to question that a little bit. It doesn't seem that powerful. It'll add a fair amount of bass, but it's not going to blow anybody away, especially with doing the high pass. It takes away the bass from the loudspeakers, and we'll put that out through just the sub. And at least with my Mackie Thumps, it's more bass than there would be usually, but it's not an extraordinary amount of bass. So don't expect to be just blown away with power with this thing. Another thing that I noticed and that I found in practice is that the heat sink on the back gets very hot from the amplifier. This is a powered subwoofer, so it uses the old style of amplification, which generates a lot of heat. And after continuous use at very high levels, this guy will just get scalding hot in the back, so be careful, don't touch that after a lot of use. And also what I recommend is to actually have a small fan rolling on the back here. I was actually at a gig a while ago and I didn't do that, and the sub actually stopped working. It just shut off. It was working too hard for too long and it just turned off, and I got really scared. I'm like, oh no, I blew my subwoofer, it's going to be damaged forever. I let it cool down for about 15 minutes with the fan on it, turn it back on, worked just fine. I don't know if that's a safe, well, I assume it's a safety feature. And from now on I'm just a lot more careful, trying to treat this thing as good as I can. And I bring a small fan with me to roll on it, and I've had a lot better luck with that. It doesn't get nearly as hot, and it can play louder for longer. So just that small addition will actually help this thing out a lot. As long as you know that when you buy this, you get what you pay for. It's not going to outperform higher subs and that kind of thing. As long as you don't have any expectations that are unreachable, I think you'll be very satisfied with this product. I know I am. It doesn't put out an enormous amount of power, but I didn't expect to, and I don't think anybody should for this price level. Okay, now I'm going to turn it on and actually bring a signal to it. So I've got my Gemini GVX-SUB15P, which is still working fine for me. What you want to do is always turn the signal on first, and then any of the speakers. So turn that on, and then just hit the power switch. When you turn the power on, there will be a blue LED that will turn on down there just to say that it's on. And then there's also the clip and limiter light. Now a lot of people complain that the limiter light is useless, and I completely agree with that. Right now it's blinking as the manual states it should, but as soon as any sort of signal gets sent to the subwoofer, it pretty much stays on with maybe a tiny bit of flickering. According to the manual, the limiter light is used to gauge how much power is being put through, and if it's a constant on without any flickering, that means it's too loud. I don't know about that. I really don't trust it. The only light that I look at is the red clip light above, and that'll start flashing when you're getting to the limit of power being sent through. So that's pretty much all that I keep an eye on. Alright, so you can see the limiter light is flashing right now. And then when I turn the volume up all the way, it just stays on. There's not even any sound being sent through, but just the volume's all the way up, and now it's pretty much constantly on. Kind of pointless. Now I don't have any loudspeakers, so it's just going to be bass, but I'm going to play some boom boom pow for you, and you'll see what kind of power gets through here. Of course we won't be able to detect it on the camera, but I might as well just give you a demo anyway.
Gotta get it kept. 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 Gotta get it kept.
Now it does shake the room quite a bit, and it was always a lot of fun to just turn that on to actually see how much bass is being put through this guy, and it does add a lot. Alright, so in conclusion, I've had a pretty good track record with this guy. Once again, I've had it for about 4 months, going on 4 months now, and it's worked great for me. I use it all the time. I push it hard a lot. I'll turn it up to just below clipping level and play it for maybe a couple hours at a time, and I've done many gigs with it and stuff. I'm very happy with it, and in fact I recently ordered another one. Maybe I'll give you an update on the second one, but this one that they sent me works great, and I like it. All Gemini products come with a 1-year warranty as well, so if you are worried about buying one and it might be a lemon, there's a 1-year warranty on it, so you'll be able to send it back to Gemini and hopefully they'll fix it right up for you. I've never worked with their customer service, so I can't say if it's good or not, but you know, the 1-year warranty means it's a 1-year warranty. As for price, you can get this guy now, it looks like on the internet, for around $450, which means that they raised the price. When I bought this one here first, I was able to get it for about $350. I think if you still look hard enough, you can get them for around that price. Gemini, I've bought 2 of their products so far, the mixer and the subwoofer. And I know I've heard a lot of bad things about them, but they've been doing well for me. Alright, thanks guys.